Serious, what celebrity death hit you the hardest? Was looking for this one. Was gutted when I heard. And his death was so senseless. It wasn't addiction or suicide or old age, just a freak accident that took away one of my favorite actors, and a promising young talent. It still feels wrong and reminded me life isn't fair. She wanted to go to rehab at one point and her father actively convinced her not to because they'd lose out on profits and fame and she was fine. That was the beginning of her downward spiral that ultimately led to her death. So many assholes around her, especially her family, who did nothing but abuse her talent. The woe is me whining her parents did after her death makes me want to puke. You were a main cause of her suffering.
Hey guys, much like you, I love reading people's stories on Ask Reddit. Unfortunately, there's a lot of weird middle school level, just thought experiment type hypotheticals like nice try Baskin Robbins. I don't find this compelling, so that's why I've made it my mission to trawl and crawl through Ask Reddit and find the very best content and put it in your ears. That's why I'm begging you, like and subscribe. If there's anything I can do to help you out, give you the kind of content that you crave to help you get through your workday, let me know in a comment. But please like and subscribe.
Mac Miller. I was deep in my addiction at the time and looked up to him a lot. It really hurt me. I used it as motivation though to get sober. Then a year and a half later I lost my partner to addiction also. Please reach out for help if you feel like you can't live without substances. Your life matters. Sober life is beautiful. Wowza, this blew up overnight. Thanks for the awards and the love y'all, it's greatly appreciated. Smile. It's basically like, imagine if one of your friends only ever wanted to talk about your job, nothing else. Sometimes they just want to shoot the shit, not talk about their job. Sure, his job was interesting, but he likes other stuff too, like Halo, Chester and Chris Cornell. Yeah. I feel like both of them had songs prior to their actions that showed they were very aware of what certain feelings were like, that got a lot heavier after the fact. Scott Weiland too. Was a big GNR and Velvet Revolver fan. His was a little less surprising, though. He's in a wonderful silly movie called Pirate Radio, and his character says, you know, a few months ago, I made a terrible mistake. I realized something, and instead of crushing the thought the moment it came I let it hang on, and now I know it to be true. And I'm afraid it's stuck in my head forever. These are the best days of our lives. It's a terrible thing to know, but I know it. I watched the movie after he passed and damn near burst into tears. I saw the announcement of his death on Twitter with death speaking. At last, Sir Terry, we must walk together. And then the next tweet. Terry took Death's arm and followed him through the doors and onto the black desert under the endless night. I was gutted. I shared my story in my own comment, but just so people can know the magic that was this man. Robin Williams. I've told this story on other accounts, but I love telling it. As a kid I was one of 10 winners for a sweepstakes to be a pen pal with Robin for a year. I was stoked and I'm like 8 or 9 years old. My brother and sister told me it probably wasn't going to be him, just a publicist or intern. I didn't care. For months we sent so many letters of silliness, all his letters were long and he really loved talking about Zelda, she's a little older than me, and all the new projects he was working on. My family went to Disney that summer and I wrote a letter while in the car and I was determined to give it to Genie because I was convinced he was always playing him in the costume and wanted to hand deliver at least one. My brother and sister were again deterring me, but I wasn't breaking my gait. Well, of all coincidences in the world, Robin actually was there signing autographs. I was ecstatic. Literally jumping for joy as I'm in line. We get to him and I'm rambling like a motherfucker telling him how I was a winner and about the letter and yada yada. He just goes, Kyle? With a massive grin, and opens his coat and pulls out my letter from a month prior that was with a few others. Apparently he kept all our letters on him while on the road to help cheer himself up, which devastates me now thinking about what that meant. I almost fainted. I cannot express the amount of electric energy surging through me knowing Robin Williams actually wrote me, knew me, and I believe truly loved me and those other kids like we were his children. I'll never ever claim anybody was a bigger fan of his than Zelda. I respect her too much to say that. But I'm definitely his second biggest fan of all time. When he died I cried into my then wife's arms for a full hour. I felt I really lost a true friend that got me through so much growing up. A man that could get my siblings and I to shut up and just revel in his magic for hours at a time. I miss you, Robin. Every day, Mr. Rogers. As a kid growing up in Pittsburgh, so many of my afternoons were spent exploring a new world with him. I had a friend in college that I talked to after Mr. Rogers had passed, and he had said that when he and his brother were sad they both watched his show because it felt like somebody loved them. It was tragic, but what's really tragic is everyone using him as a symbol of depression. Robin Williams didn't kill himself because he was depressed, he killed himself because of his struggles with Lewy body disease, an aggressive form of dementia that was literally making him lose his mind.
Do you have any idea how convenient it is to use a Keurig machine for brewing coffee or tea? Personally, I gave up coffee a long time ago, but I was able to get a great, delicious cup of coffee in just seconds with no cleanup, no extra work using a Keurig machine and a K-cup. And now I use my Keurig machine to brew tea, loose leaf tea, every day that I drink. And I also use it to make oatmeal and, anything else that you can put hot water into. So if you don't have a Keurig machine in your house, you're missing out. Try my affiliate link below in the description of the video, and you too can enjoy a great cup of coffee in seconds any time of day.
Chris Cornell. Grew up with Soundgarden and Temple of the Dog. The first Audioslave album came out when I was in high school. Epic sound, seemed like a great guy. I thought he was going to survive the grunge curse. The only one left from that era now is Eddie Vedder, not exactly a celebrity but Satoru Iwata. I loved many Nintendo games during his era as CEO, and after his passing I was in awe at how much he did personally to save games that were in development hell, as well as him choosing to take personal responsibility for the losses Nintendo saw during the Wii U by cutting his paycheck rather than letting go of employees. Truly an exemplary man if ever I've seen one. Philip Seymour Hoffman. You can be clean for 20 years and are still at risk of relapse. He did lose one of his support networks, falling out with AA after drinking for the first time in decades, but if Hess not safe from addiction, whoing is. I understand Teresa, a guy inside me who wants to lay in bed, smoke weed all day, and watch cartoons and old movies. My whole life is a series of stratagems to avoid, and outwit, that guy. Anthony Bourdain. I love this quote so much, man. RIP. Thank you for the awards and all the replies, take care of yourselves. Anthony Bourdain. The man was successful, he had many good friends, and yet he was so miserable he took his own life. Robin Williams' suicide I understood, his quality of life was going to go downhill fast. I feel like if Bourdain got the right help he could have had a happy life. Christina Grimmie. I used to follow her YouTube channel very early on, long before she became famous, and I was so excited that she made it on The Voice. Then one random day a crazy fan shot and killed her. Celebrity deaths don't really get to me, but hers hit me hard for a while. She had a very bright future ahead of her and it was all taken away in seconds. He died a couple of weeks before I started university. At the freshers' ball, the band stopped playing and asked us to respect a minute's silence for Steve. 1,000 pissed up teenagers, away from home for the first time, and not one said a word, until the minute was over and a spontaneous Steve. 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 Chant broke out. I don't know if any other celebrity could have commanded that much universal respect. Douglas Adams, author of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I was kind of a weird kid, had trouble connecting with people. Then I read Hitchhiker's Guide when I was 12-year-old and it was like a light switching on. The strange twisting logic, the absurdism, the silly cynical ridiculousness of it all, it felt like, for the first time, I had found a worldview and perspective I could relate to. Douglas Adams became this almost mythical figure to me, this strange, distant person I could finally connect with. I desperately wanted to meet him, to be his friend. Then I learned that, a year before I'd even started the books, he died. It honestly crushed me, it felt I'd lost my best friend. I mourned him, and mourned the imagined relationship I could have had with him. Looking back, it was obviously a parasocial relationship, and my fantasies about this 50-year-old British author becoming buddies with a 12-year-old kid living in the US were nonsense, but I still felt it acutely at the time. David Bowie. I just sat on my bed and sobbed. It didn't help that I got like 15 texts and Facebook messages from friends and family asking if I had heard or breaking the news to me. ETA, wow, this blew up. Thank you for the awards. Love all you crazy cats. George Carlin. I grew up watching him and saw his live shows 3 times. Kinda felt like my amazing uncle died. Still miss him to this day. Wow. This post really took off. Thanks all for the awards. I do miss George though. I hope this post reminds us all what an incredible talent he was and is still missed.
I turned 36 this year and I decided to focus on my physical fitness, so I bought a swim club membership. The only problem was, most of the time when I go swimming, I wind up getting an ear infection. So it turns out that normal earplugs, they kind of irritate your ear canal, they don't really work, they don't keep the water out, but there is an amazing kind of earplug. It's called Mack's Pillow Soft Silicone earplugs that, they feel great, they keep the water out 100%, they're reusable, and they don't irritate your ear canal at all, no issues. If you've ever had a severe ear infection, you don't want to experience that again. It can permanently damage your hearing if you're unlucky. So investing in these earplugs is definitely a good idea. Also, when my baby was crying later this year and I could not get to sleep, I used the same earplugs and they worked great. I was able to sleep right next to a crying baby. So be sure to click my affiliate link and purchase some of these Mack's earplugs today.
Oh man, every time I think of Phil I think, fuck his fucking shitbag wife. Why couldn't she just take herself out? Why take Phil, too? And then I remember the Andy Dick story and get mad at him, again. Phil Hartman was so awesome. Here's the story about Andy Dick, told by John Lovitz. It's not what I heard back when the incident happened, sorry for misleading. For what it's worth to you, I went to college and was close with his daughter. I didn't know she was related until I mentioned I had made a new friend freshman year to my parents and naturally they recognized her last name. She's doing really well. Can't speak to how she deals with her past day in and day out, but she grew up to be a wonderful person and I was lucky enough to go to her wedding and share in that moment in her life. Phil was an amazing man. Taken from us way too soon. I met him once at a tiny anime con and while I knew his face and knew that I should know his name, I couldn't place it. We chatted about Halo for a bit over an hour because he seemed super into it. Maybe he wanted a break from all the Mythbusters talk? But he was super nice. This dog. For years randomly this guy's guitar videos show up in my recommended on YouTube, and in a lot of them the dog is just chilling there. Well this week, he posted this video announcing the dog had died, and I cried. I usually am like oh no when a famous person dies but it doesn't really impact me. But this dog. Man. It got to me, it was also such an awful, insulting end for such a brilliant mind. His utter rage at what was happening to him, and there was nothing he could do about it was so damn painful. He did some really emotional interviews on UK TV, one I really remember was one he did to raise awareness on Alzheimer's on C4 News where you could tell he was just brought to tears at not being able to communicate how he used to. Then a year after he passed, there was a memorial show for him where Neil Gaiman started crying, saying he just wanted his friend back and it broke me. I still haven't read The Shepherd's Crown, because then when I do there'll be no more Discworld books left to read.
If there's ever a fly, or a mosquito, or like a yellow jacket, or some weird unknown insect in my house, my wife will not leave me alone until it is dead, and she will blame me personally for having a house that an insect entered. The only way that I'm able to buy peace for myself so that I can work on this YouTube channel that you enjoy is by using an electric fly swatter with an affiliate link in the description. The way this fly swatter works is that you hold down the little button and then you whack the fly as if it were a tennis ball and it looks like a tennis racket. And what the electricity does is it stuns the insect or kills it so that you can clean it up easily. And the fact that it's a tennis racket gives you a much better chance of actually hitting the insect. And I found it invaluable, and I hope that you will decide to also use it in your home. And, if you're like a teenage boy, you can also whack other teenage boys with it. We used to do that in the Boy Scouts.